Greetings, stamp enthusiasts, and welcome to another episode of Snail Mail with Smokey. I hope you're having a terrific day wherever you're at. It is time once again for Stamp versus Stamp, my monthly collaboration with That Dad Guy, where together Rob and I challenge each other to some wacky, zany, crazy task in hopes of bringing some fun, some excitement, some levity, and yes, even a bit of information to the wonderful hobby of philately. Well, Rob and I have a really great stamp versus stamp lined up for you this month, so let me tell you how it's going to go. Rob and I have each selected 4 postage stamps. We're each going to show you the 4 stamps in our video, and then we're going to tell you a fictional story about these stamps that each of us has written. Now, there's a couple of catches to this month's platform. The first being, we're only going to tell you part of the story. That's right. I'm going to show you the 4 stamps I've selected, and I'm going to tell you a story, but the story is going to be incomplete. And then the challenge is for Rob, just by looking at the postage stamp, to finish the story that I've begun, and vice versa. So you need to watch my video. You need to watch That Dad Guy's video. Make sure you like, you subscribe, you leave comments, because it's going to be a great stamp versus stamp. There's also one more catch. The stamps that I'm going to show you, they all have a theme, but I'm not going to tell you what that theme is. I'm going to see if you can guess it. And then at the end of the video, maybe we'll discover that together. So let's get started. The first stamp that I want to show you for this month's Stamp versus Stamp is this beautiful stamp right here. This is St. John's Hospital in Burgess. This stamp was released by Belgium on May the 10th, 1975. It has a face value of 4.5 Belgian francs, and it is Scott number 926. So relax, grab your favorite beverage, maybe get a little snack, and let me begin to tell you a story about this wonderful stamp. In the time of knights and kings, jesters and maidens, lived a young man named Simon. Simon was the son of the local cobbler and his wife, who lived in a loft above their shop on the banks of the Jardis River in the hamlet of Montclair. While it was always his father's wish to pass his trade and skills down to his son, Simon's father knew that his son's destiny lay elsewhere. Lawrence was a shy, withdrawn man who prided himself in his work and in his small family. On the day that Simon was born, Lawrence took his newborn son in his arms, and with one hand, he held tight to his son, and with his other, he crafted the most wonderful pair of boots for Simon. Now, this is a tradition that carried on every year until one day Lawrence fell ill and shortly thereafter passed away. Now, Simon had spent his youth beside his father's workbench, watching him and trying to soak in the knowledge and skills of his father. And while Simon knew the process of making and repairing boots, he did not have the talent of his father, and that grieved him deeply. Weeks went by, and Simon worked morning to night, trying to keep up with his family's work, but each day became more and more difficult for him. What would take his father mere minutes to accomplish would take Simon many hours. The frustration, anxiety, and grief for his father became too much for Simon to bear. "I can't do it!" Simon screamed at the top of his lungs. "I'm not my father! I am nothing!" Now, Simon thought that no one had heard him, but indeed someone had. His mother was walking down the stairs to bring Simon his dinner when she heard her firstborn implore the heavens. "Oh, Simon, while it's true that you're not your father, that's okay, because you are you." Just then, Simon's mother reached into her pocket and took out a letter. As she handed it to Simon, she said, "Simon, this letter is from your father. He wanted me to give it to you when you were ready." Simon took the letter from his mother's hand, and as he opened it, tears began to fall from his face as he read these words. "My dear son, We are never promised tomorrow. And because of that, we must always live today to the fullest. I know that in my absence, you will try to pick up my tools and carry on. But this place, this life, it was my calling and not yours. Throughout the years, your mother and I have prepared for this day. And so, Simon, today is your last day in this shop. Arrangements have been made for your mother to move to a home across town where she'll be able to have a garden and a comfortable life. The business has been sold and the new owner will take possession as soon as you are ready. And as for you, my dear son, I would ask that you would do me one final favor. Across the river lies the land of St. John. Go there and you will find a large brick building bearing the name of the town. I have made arrangements beforehand for you to stay there. It is in this place that you will discover your true calling and begin the life that you are meant to live. Take care, my son, and remember I love you, and I am forever proud of you. Dad. Simon wiped the tears from his eyes and embraced his mother. The next day he packed his belongings and mounted his horse. He was headed across the river to the land of St. John with a letter from his late father in his pocket and coins in his purse. As he waved goodbye to his mother, one thought kept running through his head. What would he find when he reached the large brick building? And would he find the destiny that he so desperately sought?
As he rode on, the memories flood through, wondering, what was it like? What had he gone through? All he had now is this memory, this letter, this recollection, the stories that had been told to him. And now all he really wanted was answers to some of those questions that had been out there. As he rode on the horse, he could see the buildings getting closer and closer as the farmland disappeared behind him. He was now entering the city with the beautiful river that went along the side of these old brick buildings. He could see the brick building that he really wanted to get to off in the distance. And as he approached, he thought, was his father just as the way they said he was? Could he live up to those expectations? He approached the building. He tied his horse outside. He went up to the big wooden door, turned the handle, and entered in. The first thing he saw was a long corridor of rooms. Off to one side, there was a desk and a woman sitting all dressed in white from head to toe. He approached that head nurse and he said, do you know where I could find... And then the words escaped him. What did they call him? What should he do? Who is he actually looking for? He pulled the letter from his pocket, unable to make the words that he really wanted to say come out. He handed the letter across the desk to the woman. The woman read the letter, looked at the name at the bottom, and then directed him down the hall. As he went down the hall with the letter still in tow, a tear rolled down his cheek. Was it worth it? Should he have come at all? As he got down to the end of the room, he saw a glass panel. It slid open. On the other side was another woman waiting. He handed the letter off to her. She opened it. She looked. With a quizzical smile, she pointed across the hall, said, locker number 16. Locker 16. What would he find? So he went across the hall. He opened locker number 16. And to his surprise, he found a whole bunch of things that he never knew he ever would find again. Would they even fit? So what he did, he tried them on, piece by piece. First the jacket, then the pants, the shoes, the hat, the accessories that went along with the outfit. Didn't quite fit 100% like he knew it would. I mean, he wasn't the same build as his father. So, all dressed up, he opened another door. He walked through the door. And he began to juggle. He was dressed as a clown. No, not a scary clown, but a clown nonetheless. His father was part of a secret order of clowns, and oh boy, did he feel refreshed. He felt invigorated. He felt like he was a part of something once again. That order of clowns made him chuckle, and he made all the other people that were waiting for him chuckle too. He did tricks. They just came naturally to him. He was able to do card tricks. He was able to juggle balls. He was able to honk the red nose that he had on his face. He let the children step on his elongated shoes, and in it he found such joy. Those memories tearing down his face through the makeup. They were just painted on tears. Why do they do that? Why does he have to be a sad clown? Simon never knew. But he knew that going forward, he would make the best clown to make his father very proud of the accomplishments that he had had before him, making people happy rather than bringing people down in this hospital. He wanted to lift people up. And so that is why we have this stamp. It represents the joy that some people bring in times when other people are at their lowest.
The second stamp I'd like to share with you today is this stamp here. This is from Nicaragua. It is Scott number C812, issued on November 13th, 1972. It's from a series that's celebrating crime novels, and this stamp here depicts Sherlock Holmes. So, once again, allow me to favor you with half a story. A tall, portly man emerged from the shadows of the dining room. He held a pipe in his right hand, and in his left hand he clutched his suspenders. The gruffness of his voice was heard as he cleared his throat and began to speak to the 8 guests that had been assembled. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Colonel Bertram Shaw. You may address me as Colonel Shaw, or Colonel for short if you like. As for my background, I was recruited from my university's Officer Training Corps program. I was the first member of the program to receive a perfect score on His Majesty's Armed Forces entrance exam. I was also the youngest person to ever reach the rank of full colonel at the age of 34. My current posting is head of operations for Sector 33. A computer installation ran via a joint effort between the British military and Energy 77, a civilian-owned robotics firm. I am afraid, though, that my work is highly classified and none of you have the proper security clearance for me to expound on the nature of my work. As for my association with our late guest, all I can say is that I met him in my military connections. Once again, I do apologize for my vagueness, but I am not at liberty to discuss the nature of our association. I can say that I had limited contact with him. I called him to meet with me, a request that I never honored. I can also say that he did seem to be a man of honor and intelligence, and I value the time that we were able to collaborate. But I'm afraid that I've been tasked with delivering some rather terrible news to you this evening. You see, my dear friends, Oswald Xavier Treadway, the 12th Earl of Claxton, is dead. More precisely, he has been murdered. Now, according to Scotland Yard's preliminary reports, here are the facts that are currently known. The late Earl's assistant, a woman named Abigail Richards, arrived for work in the office at Claxton Castle at approximately 7:45 a.m. on the morning in question. She briefly checked in with the Earl, and at approximately 8 a.m., the two went over the Earl's daily schedule together, after which Mrs. Richards returned to her office. Mrs. Richards then states that the Earl made and received several morning telephone calls, but he had no official visitors. At approximately 12 o'clock, Mrs. Richards left for work. She drove 10 miles east, where she's seen on video, as well as several witnesses, visiting her father in an assisted living facility. Now, this is typical for Mrs. Richards, as she's had the habit of lunching with her father every day for the past 22 months. At approximately 1:25 p.m., Mrs. Richards returns to Claxton Castle. She immediately reports returning to her office and while doing so, passing by the Earl's office. She believes the door to his office was closed. At approximately 3:30 p.m., Mrs. Richards states that she has prepared afternoon tea and proceeds to deliver it to the Earl. Upon entering his office, she reports seeing the Earl slumped over his desk. She ran to him, saw blood on his clothes and person. She immediately picked up the phone and called authorities. Paramedics and police arrived on the scene at approximately 3:43 p.m. And according to the first officer on the scene, one David Baxter, the Earl appeared to have a single gunshot wound. The Earl was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, the medical examiner's report lists the cause of death as a fatal gunshot wound to the chest. And the time of death has been reported between 12:30 and 1 p.m. A murder weapon has not been recovered from the scene. The office of the Earl seems to be in order, with nothing in disarray save two things. First, a single bullet hole found in the wall behind the Earl's desk, suggesting that the killer missed their first attempt and had to fire again to strike the Earl. The second is the wall safe that was found open and its contents removed. The entire room has been processed for evidence, and Scotland Yard is awaiting the report. Ladies and gentlemen, Scotland Yard believes that the Earl's murderer is in this very room. So for those of us who are not guilty of this despicable crime, it behooves us to flush out the criminal and clear our names and reputations. So I have spent the evening observing all of you, and I am now ready to reveal who murdered Oswald Xavier Treadway, the 12th Earl of Claxton, what the killer's motive was, and how exactly this horrible crime was committed. So let us begin.
It was the first day of spring, and I was summoned to this great manor up on the hillside. It overlooked the town square. And so I decided that it would be best if I just walked. I knew the person I was going to see wasn't going anywhere. And it gave me time to think. So as I walked through the cobblestone streets, up the embankment, around the corner, around the bend, passing local villagers as they were headed off to church on that early morning, I noticed the flowers were slowly peeking from the ground, and the birds had returned to the trees. I approached the gate of the house. It was open, so I walked right through. I carried on down the really long tree-lined lane and found my way approaching the grandiose columns of this once magnificent manor. The Earl of Claxton had kind of let it go. It was falling in a little bit of disarray. I went up to the door, and the door opened. The butler was waiting for me. He knew I was coming. He knew why I was there, and he ushered me into the foyer. In the foyer, everyone had gathered. And I mean by everyone, the maid, the cook, his wife, and his young son of age 13. I looked it over, peered at everyone, as they all seemed a little nervous for me to be there. They knew my reputation. They knew what I was capable of. What I did was just stare out the window. They looked at me, and I looked out the window. Because I could see out the window was a huge, huge tree. It must have been there for hundreds of years. It must have been the family's first tree planted. Everything in the garden seemed to be planted around it. Everything was in a little bit of order outside, even though chaotic, because trees had not been pruned, grass had not been cut, and the flowers and shrubbery were overgrown. Focusing my attention back on those in the room, I first looked at the maid. Why was she here? Sunday morning she normally has the day off. But yet, last night she stayed. Curious. And the cook? he seemed to have a smear of something upon his white cloak. His jacket should have been prim and proper. It was early Sunday morning, after all. What had he been cooking that he'd gotten dirty already? The butler, who had shown me in, was in his prime best, in his black suit. Had a bit of a scowl, though. You would expect that the butler would be a little friendlier to guests. But I guess it really wasn't a friendly occasion to have me here. So as I moved around the room, I saw his wife. And she wasn't really consoling the son. And the son wasn't all that upset by what had happened. What was going on in this household? I think I had an idea. So I decided, while everyone was there, I would take them one at a time across the hall to the office, where it all played out. So, first, I took the maid. We walked across the hall. I asked her, "Why were you here early this morning?" She had mentioned that she'd been here from the night before, that they'd had a big function, and it was kind of expected that she'd be here to clean up after everything had gone down. So she agreed, and she spent the night, and she had come across the office when this is what she found. So slumped over the desk was a man. It was clearly Oswald Xavier Treadway, the 12th Earl of Claxton. In front of him was a glass and a plate with a half-eaten muffin. Underneath of him, though, was a piece of paper, half-written, pen still in his hand. I said, "Did you move anything?" She said, "No, I didn't. As soon as I found him, I was very shocked, and I told his wife right away." I said, "Was there anything else? Anything unusual? Anything in particular that you might have seen in this time?" She said, "No, it was strange, though. Normally, the Earl wasn't in his office Sunday morning. He would have been out in the garden." I thanked her. I took her back across the hall. This time, I grabbed the butler. I went to the butler, and we went across the hall. I said, "When did you first come in here and see the Earl?" He said, "This is actually my first time being in this room. I never came in after I'd heard the news. I waited. I called the police. They sent you." The butler never checked in on the Earl of the Manor first thing in the morning. Seems a little odd. Well, the next person I brought in was the chef. I said, "Did you prepare a meal for the Earl this morning?" He said, no, normally he has a big meal, but this time he said he really wasn't interested in something large, that he would just take a muffin and his usual tea, but he wanted it in his office. I asked, "Were you at the function last night?" "Oh, yes, I prepared the meals. I actually had to work late. I had to work early into the morning, too. They were going to have a big garden party later this afternoon, and so I really had to get here early, stay late. I've been working so much, cooking so many things, getting ready for everything that's going on." "What's the big occasion?" "Oh, it's the young Earl's birthday this afternoon, and so they were going to have a party for him." Okay. Thank you. The next person I interviewed was the birthday boy. Why wasn't he upset? I brought him in here. We looked at his father laying lifeless over the desk. I said, "Are you not upset that your father has passed?" He said, "Oh yes, sir, very upset. But the burden now of earldom falls to me. And so I've been thinking, here on my birthday, I've now taken on all the responsibility of the manor. What am I going to do? How am I going to run this? I know that things were not good financially, that in many kingdoms, the manors were starting to fall apart because they weren't having the same income coming in to support them. What will I do now? How will I help my mother? The last person I brought in was the wife. She was a bit aloof. She looked at her husband laying there and said, "Are they not going to take him away? Are they just going to leave him laying there?" I said, "Until we determine what's happened, we can't really take him away. We can't move him until we've cleared all the evidence. What do you remember about the last thing you said to your husband?" I said, "Eat this muffin and drink this coffee." I was in the office. I was in a rush. We had things to do. There was a party ahead of him. All I heard was him choking on the muffin. And I said, "Can't you just write faster? All you have to finish to say is happy birthday on that card, and we can get on with the rest of the day." And then he tumbled over. I tried to say, we're in a rush. We got things to do. But he didn't move. So then I went and saw the cook. I said, "What did you do to the muffin?" Because clearly my husband didn't like it. He was sputtering and spitting on it as he chewed it. I said, "Just a regular muffin." "What do you mean?" He was sputtering. Like you do. When you don't like something, you kind of sputter. "Are you sure that's what was happening?" "I think that's what was happening." I was kind of busy thinking about all the things that we had to do for this party today. Wait a minute. And then it hit me. The husband had just choked to death on the muffin. There was no murder here. There was no killer. Time had just caught up. And so, another case solved.
I hope that you've enjoyed the first two stories that Rob and I have meshed together for you. And now it's time for stamp and story number 3. This stamp is from Uruguay. It is Scott number 1535, issued July 28th, 1994, for International Year of the Family. So listen closely as I tell you the story. Our lives are like a tapestry. In and of ourselves, we are a mere canvas upon which a million strands are cast upon to create the masterpiece that we are each destined to become. Some of those strands are bright and vibrant in color. Some are dark and rich, yet others are more muted and at first glance may seem insignificant, or at the very least less impressive and important than the others. However, the truth is that in every great work of art, the beauty and the genius is not found in the broad, bold stroke, but in the small detail, in the little things that to an untrained master will appear of little interest and thus would be left out of their work. It is into that area that I take you now, into the corners and shadows, to shed light on an unassuming thread. But please, make no mistake, should this thread have not been gently sewn into place, the entire fabrication would unravel, and that which was to be a design that would rival the ages would be but a pile of possibility strewn across the sod. Lydia was a woman coming into her own and eager to begin her new life out west. Her father and mother had saved for years, and now they had all that they needed to make the journey to this new and unsettled land. They had spent 1,000 nights walking through the land in their dreams. But now they had a wagon filled with all the necessities of life, seed and farm tools to plant a crop, and a trusty pair of oxen named Steady and True to lead them to their new promised land. As they had said goodbye to all they had known and began the journey, Lydia thought to herself that she would soon be as far away from home and all that she had known in her long 22 years of life. Lydia and her family had traveled for 2 weeks, and despite the occasional scrape from a thorn bush, the road had been kind and the days had been filled with anticipation and hope. But all of that was about to change. Lydia was about to meet him. And in doing so would set into motion all that I have spoken to you before. But be at rest, my friends. Fill your cups and turn your ears unto me, because what I tell you next will amaze not only you, but the generations that are to follow.
These scrapes and cuts won't mean anything unless they get to where they're going. Can't believe that for 2 weeks they've been traveling. Not too much of a hiccup along the way. They stayed in nice places until this rental car had to break down. It had to break down just outside of town. But without a map, they decided that as a family, they could cut through this field and get there much quicker. Well, they didn't know that all those plants would be there, or that the field had been freshly harvested, and so now there were prickly thorns and leftover shrubs from the machinery that had passed through. They were getting a few scrapes and scratches along the way, but eventually they did find a garage, and they told them about where their rental car had broken down. They would send a tow truck to get it, but there was a hotel nearby that they could go to, and luckily enough, it was the one that they were planning on going to all along. So, as a family, they ventured on. One of these trips that will now have an extra flair of memory when they look back on it. They got to the hotel. They told them their situation. They said the bags would be along later. When the car was fixed, it would be delivered and they could have their belongings. The clerk said, not a problem. Check in. We've got everything that you need here to freshen you up. And we actually have a nice restaurant downstairs if you want to get a bite to eat. So they decided, well, why not? Let's turn what has been kind of a rough afternoon into something a little bit more joyous. They're at their final destination. They'd been traveling for 2 weeks, had great adventures along the way, and decided, let's go down, let's have a nice family meal, and forget the bad things and focus on all the positive things that we've had. As they sat down to the table, the waitress came to them and said, here are your menus. These are the specials that we have today. And would anyone like to have a beverage to start? The two children jumped right up and said, yep, I'd like to have something special today. Do you have anything special? We thought, you know what? We can make you something special. So they will. The parents decided water would be fine. It had been a hot day. They just needed to relax. And so that's what they would have. As they prepared by looking through the menu to decide what they're going to have to eat, the kids were more looking for a hamburger and fries or a slice of pizza. This really wasn't that kind of restaurant, but they did have a kids menu and they probably could find something for them. The parents were more interested in having something refreshing, maybe a salad with a nice piece of fish, or even a steak would be nice tonight. They noticed that there was a bit of a stage off the side. So, yes, it was a restaurant, but it looks like they had performers here. And there were some people setting up along the way. So maybe they were going to get dinner and a show tonight. That would be something interesting. Well, the waitress came back. They ordered their meals. They said it wouldn't be long. The kitchen wasn't that busy today, but there was going to be a performer taking place today. Oh, they thought, that would be great. We could use a laugh or a little bit of entertainment while we ate our meal tonight. So they sat, they talked about how the day went. Eventually, meals and appetizers were put before them, and the mics clicked too as the stage got set up. The speakers sparked a little bit, and they said, now, for your entertainment, we have Justin Bieber. And he came to the stage, and he started to perform, and the kids' eyes lit up. They were coming to a concert after all today. They never knew that they would meet him here. I guess it was something that he does quite often. He goes to local small areas. He puts on 1 or 2 songs to get the crowd going and to be a bit of a surprise. The kids were delighted. This was the day that they got a chance to meet Justin Bieber, and their lives had changed forever.
3 stamps, 3 stories, and 1 left to go. So the last stamp that I want to share with you is this issue from Jersey, Scott number 789, issued on February 12th, 1997. And this is Lily the cow eating a meal. So what possible story could I have to tell you about this stamp? Well, my friends, here it goes. You see, it was a warm and sunny Saturday morning. And as the sun rose over the countryside, Lily sat beneath a large oak tree at the edge of her farm, eating her morning meal. It was a scene that had played out every Saturday for as long as she could have remembered. Lily enjoyed the time soaking up the sun and dreaming of the adventures of days gone by, while looking forward to what this new day would bring. What she would find herself doing, perhaps sailing down the river as the captain of her own vessel. Would she don her sword and sash and search for buried treasure? Perhaps she would be summoned to the Queen's court and be asked to join Her Majesty in afternoon tea. The possibilities were endless, and the prospects of what could be brought a smile to Lily's face. Lily had been on 1,000 adventures during her life, each one filled with mystery, wonder, and glee. Although she had sailed the 7 seas, danced in the hanging gardens, explored the pyramids of Egypt, truth be told, Lily had never left the farm. You see, each and every adventure she had experienced was via her vivid imagination. Lily was not like every other person you know. In fact, Lily wasn't a person at all. Lily was a cow. Yes, you heard me correctly, a cow, a bona fide bovine, if you will. She had been born on the farm and spent her days grazing the field and watching the people who drove up and down the narrow 2-lane gravel road that ran past the eastern gate of the property. Now, Lily had a good life on the farm. The owners of the farm took great care of her, giving her the best care possible. But still, Lily dreamed for more. She dreamed of visiting the places that she had seen on the side of delivery trucks and had heard visitors talk about. So every morning after breakfast, she would lie beneath that old oak tree and begin to dream. On one particular day, Lily was once again traveling. The purpose for this outing was dinner, but not just any dinner, a celebratory dinner. Lily had phoned up the best restaurant in town and said, "Hello? This is Lily." "Yes, that Lily. I'd like a reservation for 4, please." 8 o'clock will be fine." As soon as Lily hung up the phone, the manager of the restaurant called his staff together and told them all that the world's premier food critic would be dining there this evening, and everything must be perfect. "Oh, and one last thing," the manager said. "Lily is a cow, so no beef."
"What do you mean, no steak?" yelled the chef. "We are a steak restaurant. You can get your steaks well done, medium rare, or blue. That's how we do it. We only have steaks on the menu. We serve them with garlic mashed potatoes that are in a buttery, creamy sauce." You know what? I just thought of it. We've got milkshakes on the menu too. How's that going to go over with this food critic? Pie with cream on top. Sometimes we even serve a little cheese on the side. We are mostly a dairy and beef restaurant. This food critic's going to have a cow when she's going to get upset when she gets in here and sees what can we feed her. The manager thought about it and said, "You know what? You're right. She is not going to be a happy heifer. She is not going to be a happy customer. We have to come up with something different on the menu for tonight." The chef thought about it. "I've got just the idea. You know what? I think I can make this work. All right, you do your best. We're going to get the table set up." She wanted to have a nice table right by the water. So we've got the perfect spot picked out. We're going to get the fine linens put on it. We'll bring out the right polished silverware, and it will be a beautiful spot for her to enjoy whatever meal you have coming. Well, Lily showed up. You could tell she showed up because the bell around her neck sounded every time she walked. They gave her a nice seat right next to the canal. Beautiful spot. She asked for the menu for the food critic. She said, no, that's not how we do it at this restaurant. We have a special dish that is coming just for you. She said, oh, that's perfect. A surprise menu. You don't get that very often when you go into restaurants. Sometimes they even ask you what you'd like to have. But nope, not here. We're not asking you what you have. We know what you want to have already. So the chef has been busily preparing exactly what you need. Lily thought this was great. She pulled out her notebook and started to jot down notes already of her experience at this restaurant. She'd been here once before, but it was not a good experience. It was under a different ownership, though. It was a different menu. She came for sushi, and it really wasn't what she was looking for, especially right next to the canal. Well, this time, she didn't know what to expect. I mean, she didn't have a menu. She'd heard things about the restaurant, and she'd come thinking that, oh, I've got their number. We know what's going to happen this time. Well, the waiter returned. He said, we've got something for you. I hope you're ready. So they brought this nice salad. Oh, perfect. Salad, fresh vegetables on top. Looked beautiful. It had a vinaigrette sauce. She bit in. Delightful. Perfect. Met every expectation that she needed. And so she jotted down in her book to review her appetizer. I think this is going well, the manager thought as he looked from afar. The waiter responded once again and brought another dish, something else for her to enjoy. This time, it was just a small sliver of a cookie. It said, this is just to cleanse your palate before. So, oh, this is fantastic. She took the cookie, let savor it a bit, cleansed her palate with the beverage that she had chosen, and said, normally, if you're going to cleanse your palate, they'd give you something different. And I was ready to jump on that. But this time, no. A nice, light cookie was just enough to clean the taste of the vinaigrette and the oils that were there. This is perfect. So the next thing, the main meal came out. Came under a beautiful silver cloche, delivered right to her table. And so Lily, super impressed. Great presentation. Jotted down in her notebook once again. And the waiter lifted up the cloche in front of her. And inside was a bluest of blue piece of steak right before her. And she gasped. What? You're going to serve me a piece of steak at a restaurant like this? And she could hear from the kitchen, this is a beef restaurant. That's what we serve. If you come to a beef restaurant, that's what you get.
Well, there you have it. 4 stamps and 4 stories co-written by myself and Rob. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed the stories and these 4 stamps that I've shared with you today. Don't forget to head on over to That Dad Guy's channel. Check out his video. He's going to show you 4 different stamps, and he's going to tell you 4 different stories, and then I'm going to try to finish them. Remember, the only information that we have to finish these stories is the stamp and just a sentence or two from the end of each other's story. So it's a total mystery for both of us how these stories have turned out. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already. Give me a big old thumbs up and leave me a comment below. Let Rob and I know what zany adventure and challenge we should go on next month in our stamp versus stamp video. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you all so much for watching. And until I see you next time, have a great... What? Oh, yeah. The stamp and the theme. Yeah, I knew I was forgetting something. All right, let's talk about that for a second. Have you guessed the theme yet? You'll have to let me know in the comments. Let's talk about the stamps, and I'm going to show you what they mean to me. This was the first stamp, this beautiful stamp from Belgium. Now, remember, I told you this stamp featured St. John's Hospital. Well, that's what that stamp means for me. See, I was born at St. John's Hospital. Not this one in the stamp, but one in Oklahoma. So that's why I picked this stamp. The second stamp that I showed you that depicted Sherlock Holmes, well, I love a great mystery. And more than a great mystery, I love a murder mystery dinner party. And I have written several murder mystery dinner parties in my life. One of them being the murder at Claxton Castle. And that's part of the story I shared with you about this stamp is from that murder mystery that I wrote a couple of years ago. Every so often, especially around my birthday, I'll write a new murder mystery, and I'll have friends and family come over, and we'll have a big dinner, and we'll play out this mystery and see if we can guess who the murderer is. And it's always a lot of fun and challenging. The next stamp I showed you was this really great stamp, fun. It's a fun stamp. It's vibrant colors from Uruguay. And it's all about family. And I wouldn't be who I am without my family. I am so blessed. I have the most amazing wife who does more in my personal life, in my professional life, for our daughters than I could ever list. We would be here for hours. I have two amazing daughters, some really great sons-in-law, and I'm just very, very happy with my family, very blessed by them, and just very thankful that the Lord has allowed us to be together. And so anytime that I can spend time with them, it's a great day. And so that's why I chose this stamp. Now, the last stamp I picked for a couple reasons. One, I love it. I collect cartoons on stamps. I think this definitely fits the bill for that. But I love the fact that you've got a cow in a pretty posh place just for a night out of dining. And who knows what's going to happen after that. Maybe she'll go scoot a hoof somewhere. Who knows what she's going to do. And the reason I picked this stamp is because one of the things that we do as a family, especially on special days, is we go to dinner. And 9 times out of 10, if I'm picking, that dinner is going to include a really good steak somewhere. So that's why I picked that stamp. And if you haven't figured it out, the theme for these stamps and this stamp versus stamp is birthday. And not just any birthday, but my birthday, because my birthday's next week. And so that's the theme for these stamps that I've picked. They represent the hospital I was born. They represent the family that I'm so blessed to be with. They represent the activities that we like to do as a family, whether it's something crazy like a murder mystery dinner party or just going out and enjoying a nice steak. We just spend time together. And that makes every day special for me that I get to do it, not just my birthdays. So there you have it. There's the theme, and that's why I picked the stamps. So where was I? Oh, yeah. Bye-bye.